I was 12 years old when the world ended, or at least when we thought it did. It started with rumors. Not news, not anything official. Just quiet whispers online, strange headlines that vanished after a few hours, and that low, sick feeling that something big was coming. Dad was always a step ahead of that kind of thing. Former military, paranoid, maybe. Prepared, definitely. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, spooning cereal into my mouth, while my sister, my twin, asked why the internet wasn't working. My mom just smiled like everything was normal, like she didn't have tears in her eyes, like we weren't all pretending the world outside wasn't coming apart. By that afternoon, Dad had made the call. We loaded up the last supplies into the lift. He called it final loadout, like it was some kind of mission. My sister protested, said it was stupid, said it was just another scare. She didn't want to leave her room, her school, her friends, but Dad wouldn't hear it. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. When Dad got quiet, you listened. The entrance to the bunker was in the workshop, a disguised floor hatch beneath the tool benches. I'd seen it 100 times before, but that day it felt different, like a coffin lid. We went down, one by one, and when the last box was inside, Dad pulled the hatch shut and turned the locking handle. It made a sound I'll never forget. Ka-chunk, like the world snapping shut behind us. Then came the silence. The lights flickered on. Dim, yellow, humming lights. Not like daylight, not even close. The air smelled like metal and concrete and something else. Recycled air, maybe. We stood in that main room, all 5 of us. Or I guess 4 then. Mom wasn't pregnant yet. Dad started issuing instructions right away. What we could use, what we couldn't, where to sleep, when to eat, how long to shower. 5 minutes max. Water was precious, electricity even more so. That night, lying in a bunk below my sister, I stared at the ceiling, low and flat and gray. I listened to the hum of the ventilation system. I listened to my sister cry quietly. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. The next morning, Dad said we should celebrate. Said we were safe, unlike the people outside. That this was a second chance, a fresh start. He cooked powdered eggs and fake bacon on a tiny hot plate and made us all eat at the steel table like it was Thanksgiving. Mom smiled through it. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I think she smiled to keep us from falling apart. If she had let go, we all would have. My sister didn't talk for 2 days after that. And me? I started counting the days on the back wall of my bunk with a pencil. Just small, straight lines. One for every day we were down there. I didn't stop counting until the pencil snapped. Time is strange down there. Days don't really pass. They recycle. There's no sunrise in a bunker. No natural rhythm. No wind. No weather. Just air that feels reused. Clean, but not real. Like breathing through someone else's lungs. After the first few days, Dad set up a schedule. Rigid, military style. Wake up at 0600. Lights on full. Breakfast rationed by calories, not cravings. School hours from 8 a.m. to noon. Physical exercise in the afternoons. 1 shower per person, every 3 days. A shared journal log every night. He said routine was key to mental survival. That boredom was more dangerous than hunger. That discipline would keep us sane. My sister Ellie hated it. She always had a streak in her. Wild, curious, loud. Down there, that got choked out fast. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to scream. The bunker walls had ears, and they always echoed your anger right back at you. I took to it better. I was quiet to begin with, used to following rules. I liked the structure, at least at first. We had a school station, a small desk with some old textbooks, notebooks, a globe, and an old laptop that wasn't connected to anything. Mom would read aloud sometimes, mostly history or science. Dad wanted us to keep sharp in case the outside needed rebuilding when we returned. At night, he'd teach us skills: how to filter water, maintain the air exchanger, cycle the batteries, patch a wall leak, check for gas buildup. He made it sound like training for a better world. But even then, I noticed something. Dad had no timeline. He never said when we were going back up. Just when it's safe. Safe became a moving target. Every time we asked, he'd shake his head, look at the monitor hooked to the surface sensors, and say, "Not yet." "The air's still hot," he'd say. "Too much radiation. Could be months." We stopped asking after the first year. At night, I'd lie in my bunk and try to remember the sound of rain on the roof, or the way grass felt under bare feet. But even memories get fuzzy when you stop feeding them. It's like watching home videos recorded over with static. Eventually the details fade, and only the silence remains. The scariest part? You get used to it. We stopped counting how many days we were in the bunker. The calendar meant nothing. Holidays passed without notice. Birthdays were whispered, not celebrated. We measured time by shampoo bottles and food cans. When something ran out, we marked it. That was the only real calendar we had left. The only real change came in the second year. That was when Mom got sick one morning, threw up her entire breakfast. Dad thought it was stress, or maybe the powdered eggs had finally turned. It wasn't. She was pregnant. The only thing louder than silence down there was fear. We didn't talk for a full day after the pregnancy test came back positive. It wasn't a fancy digital one, just a little strip buried in the bottom of a box of supplies. One pink line meant no. 2 lines meant yes. 2 lines, Mom cried quietly. Not like grief, not exactly. Something between disbelief and terror. Dad didn't cry at all. He just sat at the steel table with his hands folded, staring at the air filter unit like it could give him answers. Ellie said what we were all thinking. We don't have the supplies for a baby. She wasn't wrong. Everything had been calculated. Air, food, water, medicine, all for 4 people, not 5. Definitely not for a newborn. The math didn't work. Dad didn't answer at first. He just muttered something about God's will and went back to checking the system monitors. But over the next few days, the tension got worse. Whispered arguments between Mom and Dad. Ellie asking if Mom could even survive giving birth underground. Me, stuck in the middle, trying not to hear things I couldn't forget. "You knew this could happen," Mom said once. "We weren't supposed to be down here this long," Dad answered. I didn't know what they meant at the time. We weren't supposed to be trapped. Mom's pregnancy was hard from the start. She got sick often, couldn't keep much down. Her face got thinner, her ankles swelled. We gave her more food, smaller portions, tried to keep her spirits up. Ellie, though, she pulled away, spent more time alone. Sometimes I'd find her sitting in the backup storage room in the dark, headphones in, listening to old songs on a dying MP3 player, trying to drown out reality. "Why would they bring a baby into a grave?" she asked me one night. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. As the due date crept closer, the bunker changed. We converted the small storeroom into a nursery, cleared a spot next to the heater to make it warmer, lined the walls with blankets to dull the echo. Mom smiled more in those weeks. Not because she was happy, I think, but because she needed something to hold on to. So did we. Then came the night she went into labor. No doctors, no machines, no epidurals. Just Mom, Dad, Ellie, me, and pain. It lasted almost a full day. Screaming, bleeding, praying. There were moments when I thought she wouldn't survive. Dad kept whispering, you're strong, just a little more." But his hands were shaking the whole time. I held a flashlight over them while Ellie boiled water in a tin pot. The generator sputtered. The lights dimmed. I swear time stopped. But in the end, through sheer force of will, the crying started. And it wasn't Mom. It was her, Hope. She was tiny, red, wrinkled, loud. She looked like a mistake we'd have to pay for, but also like a miracle. Mom nearly passed out, lost a lot of blood, but she survived, barely. And for the first time in what felt like forever, we all cried, together. Hope became everything, a distraction, a purpose, proof that something new could happen, even underground. But the silence returned too, not the kind in the air, but in our hearts. The kind that comes after something breaks, even if it didn't fully shatter. We had one flashlight bulb left, half a tank of water, and a new life to keep warm. The bunker hadn't killed us, but it hadn't let us live either. Hope wasn't part of the plan, but after she was born, none of us could imagine life without her. She didn't cry much, surprisingly, at least not in the beginning. Maybe she sensed it, how little noise the bunker could handle. Maybe she knew we were already close to breaking. We wrapped her in towels, then an old parka, then whatever scraps of softness we could spare. Ellie stitched a makeshift crib out of wood slats and foam padding from an old storage bench. It creaked, but it worked. There's no nursery paint in a bunker, just concrete walls and flickering lights. But we hung drawings beside her bed. My sister even painted a sky on the ceiling with blue marker, just a few clouds and a sun with a smile. Mom stayed weak for a while. She slept often, ate little. Dad rationed out her vitamins and powdered protein like they were gold. He barely slept, working double to keep the systems running, pacing more, checking oxygen levels 3 times a day, sometimes in the middle of the night. One baby changed everything. The food, the air, the noise, even how we looked at time. I remember holding Hope at night when the power flickered. She'd rest her tiny head on my chest, warm and light, and I'd imagine we were floating in space, a family sealed inside a drifting metal capsule, heading nowhere. No stars, no destination, just the hum of life support systems and her heartbeat next to mine. Ellie was distant at first. She didn't want to bond, said it would just make things harder when the food ran out, when the lights went off, when we had to choose who got to eat and who didn't. But even she couldn't resist forever. Hope would reach for her, just once, little fingers brushing Ellie's face. And something cracked open in her sister's heart. After that, she was always close, quiet, watchful, protective in a way none of us expected. Hope didn't just survive, she grew. She started laughing at 6 months, saying sounds at 9. By a year, she was crawling, then walking, right into walls sometimes, giggling like it was a game. She was the only one who'd never seen the sky, the only one who didn't miss it. She didn't know what trees were or what a breeze felt like. To her, the bunker was the world, and in some awful, beautiful way, she made it feel alive again. But survival is never static. We noticed it first in the battery unit. Capacity was fading faster. Solar wasn't charging properly. Maybe dust on the exterior panel. Maybe age. The lights dimmed earlier each night. The air vents started making strange noises, irregular clicks and groans. Dad said we still had time, but I could see it in his face. The math was changing. Hope had shifted the equation. We weren't just stretching supplies, we were losing ground, and none of us were ready to ask the question out loud. What happens if this place fails before she ever sees the sun? At first, it felt like we were waiting to return to the world. Now, it felt like we were waiting to die in a tomb we built ourselves. Hope was 2 now, curious, active, innocent. She called the bunk beds sky ladders, thought the water tank was a whale, and once kissed the wall because it looked lonely. But the rest of us, we were fading. The power cuts grew more frequent. Sometimes, mid-meal, the lights would blink off and the fans would stutter. We'd all freeze, listening, holding our breath until the system kicked back on. One night, it didn't. The emergency backup flickered to life, red and sickly, and we sat there in half darkness, huddled together, pretending Hope couldn't tell something was wrong. "We'll fix it in the morning," Dad said. But even then, we knew he was lying. Food became a daily negotiation. We'd long since run out of anything fresh. Everything was dried, powdered, or canned. Hope didn't understand hunger. She thought it was just a kind of game. You waited until the beep from the timer, and then you got a bowl. But for the rest of us, every meal came with guilt. I watched Ellie split her portions in half and pretend she was full. I saw Mom give up her share more than once, claiming she'd already eaten, though her collarbones were starting to show. Dad was shrinking too. His hair grayed fast. He'd stopped shaving. He only ever smiled when Hope was watching. Me? I just felt tired. All the time. Like gravity had tripled. That was when the dreams started. Strange, surreal, vivid. I dreamed of grass, of wind on my skin, of voices calling from above. I dreamed I was floating outside the bunker, staring down at it like it was a grave with my name already carved into it. Ellie started sleepwalking. Once, I found her standing by the sealed hatch, whispering to it. I asked her what she was doing. "Listening?" she said. "To what?" "The world." Mom grew quieter every day. She smiled less, stopped brushing her hair. One night she stood for almost an hour staring at the wall where the paint had started to peel, as if waiting for it to speak. "It's been 3 years," she said softly, like confessing a sin. 3 years, and we don't even know if there's anyone left. Hope's laughter became both medicine and poison. It reminded us that something pure could still exist, but also reminded us how badly we were failing her. She didn't know what birds were. She didn't know what blue was, not really. We told her stories of the surface, described clouds and oceans and sunshine, and she'd smile like we were reading fairy tales. Sometimes that smile hurt more than the hunger. The final sign came from Dad. He stopped checking the monitor. For years, it had been ritual. Every morning, he'd go to the old panel, flip the switches, scan the numbers, look at the environmental readouts from the outside sensors. But now, he just walked past it. One day, I asked why. "Because it doesn't matter," he said. "Either it's still broken out there, or we've been the broken ones all along." Something had changed in him. The spark was gone. The man who built the bunker, who had answers for everything, had gone quiet. And I knew, in that silence, what was coming next. He was going to open the hatch. The end didn't come with a bang. It came with a cough, a flicker, a silence so deep it choked the air. It started with the air scrubber, a low grinding noise, like metal against bone. Then the warning light, dim red, blinking in the corner like a heartbeat gone wrong. Dad opened the panel, wires blackened, filters worn thin, a sour chemical smell we hadn't smelled before. We all gathered around while he poked at the internals with shaking hands. "I can fix it," he said. He said it 3 times, like if he repeated it enough, it would be true. But it wasn't just the scrubber. The power was flickering again, shorter intervals now. Water pressure was weak. The battery array was down to 12%. We were breathing thinner air, eating colder food, and watching the lights die like falling stars. Hope didn't notice. Not completely. She danced in the hallway, dragging her one stuffed rabbit behind her, singing a song she'd made up from pieces of our stories. "One day, I'll fly with the clouds. One day, I'll see blue." It broke Mom. I saw it happen, her face crumpling like paper under a wet hand. She left the room, went to the storage closet, shut the door, cried alone. Ellie punched a wall, split her knuckles, didn't even flinch. And Dad? He disappeared for an hour. Came back with the access panel open, the sealed hatch exposed. We all just stared at it. "You can't," Mom said. Her voice was small, brittle. "I have to," he replied, calm, empty. "You don't know what's out there." "Exactly." He looked at all of us like he was memorizing us, one by one, not with fear, but with finality. He kissed Hope on the forehead, whispered something none of us could hear, then turned to the hatch. "If it's safe," he said, "I'll come back. If it's not—" He paused, hand on the release. "Then at least we'll know." He opened it. The hiss of ancient seals breaking, the scrape of dead bolts turning for the first time in years. A wave of air rushed in, sharp, cold, real. It smelled like dust, like rust, like outside. And then he was gone. We sealed it behind him, his orders. No one spoke for a long time. Hope asked, "Where did Daddy go?" Mom just held her, rocked her gently. No answer. Not then. Ellie and I sat near the air scrubber, still humming its dying mechanical cough, watching the battery percentage tick down. 11%, 10%. Hours passed. No knock, no sound, no return. I remember staring at the wall he painted long ago, the one with the fake blue sky and sun drawn for hope. I tried to believe that somewhere, above the dirt and the silence, that color still existed. But all we had now was the waiting, and the not knowing, and the slow creeping fear that maybe, just maybe, we were the only ones left. The day the hatch opened again, none of us were ready. We'd spent too long in the dark. It had been 3 days since Dad left. The battery was down to 4%. The air scrubber coughed like a dying man. We had one meal ration left, split between the 4 of us. Hope thought it was a picnic. Mom stopped speaking completely. Ellie started writing letters to no one, to the world, to Hope, to the version of herself that once believed the bunker was a lifeboat and not a coffin. I stared at the hatch every few hours, just waiting for a knock, a sound, anything. Then it happened. A bang, then another. Faint, muffled, real. The sound of knuckles on steel. Hope jumped up and screamed, "Daddy's home!" Ellie and I ran to the door. Mom followed slowly, like she was afraid to hope. We unsealed it. Same hiss, same weight. And there he was. Dad. Face thinner, beard overgrown, coat torn and covered in ash and dust. But alive. Alive. He didn't say a word at first, just stared at us, eyes wide, haunted. Then he knelt and hugged Hope like he hadn't breathed since he left. We brought him inside, and he told us what he saw. "It's gone," he said quietly. "Everything?" I asked. "No," he said. "Not everything, but—" He told us about the town, how the buildings were still standing, but empty. Nature had taken over, vines climbing street lamps, deer grazing in parking lots, birds nesting in windows, no bodies, no people, no signs of fire or war, just absence. He walked for hours, found a newspaper inside a gas station. The date was 3 weeks after we sealed the bunker. "Global cyber attack," it read. "Collapse of communication and banking infrastructure. Panic. Supply chain failure, mass evacuations, economic freefall, but not nuclear war, not plague, not fallout." "It wasn't the end of the world," Dad said, staring at the floor. "It was the end of convenience, the end of normal." He found a map, marked routes, saw solar panels still working, found signs of small communities, smoke on the horizon, power lines rigged to windmills. Life. Fragile, hidden, but life. "We stayed down there for 3 years, Mom whispered, "for a world that moved on without us." The decision came the next morning. We packed what we could, left everything else behind, the filtered air, the blinking lights, the walls that had protected and imprisoned us. Hope walked out first, holding my hand. She looked up and gasped. "It's so big," she said. "What is?" "The sky." The sun touched her face for the first time in her life, and I cried. The world didn't end. It just changed. And maybe we did too. But now we're ready to meet it, not from a hole in the ground, but together,